None, go ahead.
It is October 22nd at 9:03 a.m. We'll call the Wright County Board of Commissioners to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone. Commissioner Burrell, it must be a Tuesday. It is raining and it is cloudy out. So just for the record.
Hey, Charlie, silence your phone, Charlie. I thought I did.
Well, he reminded the rest of us.
No, okay,
So
say that again.
I said it must be a Tuesday because it is raining out again and it is cloudy. I'm waiting to find out when we should start building that ark.
It's gonna quit now. I have my wife praying for dry weather. She's pretty tight with the Lord.
She's a very holy woman.
Yep.
All right. Well, with that, I will ask for everyone to dispense with the minutes if anyone has any modifications. Otherwise, I'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Sure.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, or sorry, Potter, Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just one little tweak on page 5 of 6. Nita, because we have the name change now to mentorship. Mentorship, education, and drug awareness.
Perfect. And I'm sure you're okay with that
Yeah.
change, Commissioner Potter? All right, any other further discussion or modifications? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, minutes are approved. Today's agenda, does anyone have any modifications or additions to today's agenda? I don't see anybody approaching the podium, so.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second that.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Dahlheiden. Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Today's agenda is approved.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, motion by Commissioner
Second.
Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Burrell to approve today's consent agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Moving on to timed agenda items. Auditor Treasurer, Mr. Bob Hevola. The approved request to increase Auditor Treasurer's change fund by $1,000.
The board, there is a clarification there that we already have a $3,000 change fund, and I want to delineate a change fund from petty cash. A change fund is just to make change when people hand us big bills and stuff like that. Petty cash is to pay for miscellaneous expenses. So in my office, we have currently a $3,000 change fund. With the fee changes down in motor vehicle, we're finding that we're having to replenish their change fund more frequently. So I'm asking to increase our change fund in the auditor's office by $1,000, bringing it up to $4,000.
So the credit card implementation hasn't stopped people from using cash yet?
No, it's correct. That is a correct statement. Some people just don't want to pay that fee, and with an ATM right outside, I think they're willing to
Pay that fee.
pay that. Yeah. Pay that. So, but yeah, we're making lots of change. So,
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair, to increase it to 4,000.
All right.
Seconded.
Motion by Commissioner Hewsome, second by Commissioner Dahlheiden. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Change fee is increased from 3,000 to 4,000. All right, the 904 timed item, Alicia O'Hare, Water Resource Specialist, updates on the North Fork.
Well, more than that, it looks like.
Well, more than that, but we'll start off with the North Fork.
Almost all of my items are encompassed in that one memo, so, yay. So just a quick update on the North Fork Crow. We are in the implementation phase of that One Watershed, One Plan. It encompasses about 2/3 of our county. For the fiscal year of 18 and 19, the whole watershed received $642,377. The Wright Soil and Water has secured $79,500 of that for 3 different projects within the county, one of which is already constructed. Part of Ditch 10 was another, so we were very happy about that. And then we also got word that for the fiscal year of 20 and 21, that amount has doubled nearly to over $1 million, $1,100,000 $1,120,477. So we're very excited to keep having funding coming through and looking forward to working with our partners in the watershed to keep improving our water quality there in the North Fork. The topic of discussion revolves around the Mississippi St. Cloud portion of the watershed and the South Fork. These are yet to enter one watershed, one plan, but we've begun discussions with our partners for each of those watersheds to do we, don't we, when do we go, what's happening? Pretty much the Wright Soil and Water says, let's go, get it done, partly because our water plan is old. It was originally written in 2005 and has been amended and extended several times because of the timing of one watershed, one plan. So as far as sorry, I jumped down to Mississippi St. Cloud. Mississippi St. Cloud are just, we will be a partner in that one. It's about a quarter of our watershed. And we'll just say, participate and we'll say, let's go for that one. Assuming the county is ready to go for that. No big news on that one yet. Unlikely to happen in 2020, but more likely 2021 for the application, and then begin planning in late 2021 or 2022. For the South Fork, there is a bit more of discussion to be had because it's only 4.7% of our county, which means we have the option to opt out of the planning process, meaning that we don't have to go to the table for it. We can still follow along, we can still add our voice, but we don't have to be at the table.
And Mr. Chair, though, I would recommend that we are partners, become partners too, so. Because McLeod County has just a sliver in ours, and they're in ours, and I think it's a good working relationship that we have that way, so. And it's gonna be a very, and I said it's in my district where that little sliver is.
I have a map if you want me to
Yep,
pull it
and
up.
we actually have I think there are some potential projects that could come up in that area too, so. It takes in part of down by Delano and then into.
Franklin Township, right?
And then I think a little into Woodland too. Yeah, Franklin and Woodland.
Yeah, wouldn't it be coming in, just out of Rockford, it comes to the South Fork?
Yes,
too.
coming up.
Yeah, it kind of
Yes,
breaks
south
there.
of Rockford, yeah.
There's a little sliver even of Hennepin County too.
That's a lot of that flooding area, isn't it, when the water's high? Isn't that a lot of that area,
It's not as bad as Delano,
it's not as bad as?
but
But no, I think, especially, then to have the experience that we had with the North Fork, it should be a real easy implementation for the South Fork, so.
There we go.
Yeah, you can see it, but it's the Delano area and then it looks like a little bit into Victor and Woodland and Franklin, yeah.
Yeah, this is the South Fork area right here. So, we don't have to decide yet.
Did soil water, I know we talked about it at the meeting, I thought they were,
Basically, we're just, let's go forth, let's be, good partners. There's absolutely no reason to stop this process. And then we can make our decision when we get to that point, really, is because it may depend on timing as well with when the Mississippi St. Cloud goes. It would be nice to stagger them, if you don't have to stagger them. But obviously, if they go at the same time, Mississippi St. Cloud is up here, that's the bigger, so we'll just balance whatever we want to do. So we just wanted to update you that those are coming quickly.
I think we want to be in both of them, so that's my.
yeah,
So we can.
You don't have the flip map that shows where McLeod has a little bit into the North Fork, do you?
No, I don't.
I
But
don't think
yeah,
I don't think it's probably real similar.
it's probably very, very similar to,
But I know people in McLeod County have been real good to work with
Right.
and the North Fork, and I'd like to reciprocate, with them, so.
Fair enough.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Alicia, I do like the fact that we want to be at the table and listen and see what, and I respect what Commissioner Burrell's saying. They've been a good partner. McLeod's been good there. Even though it's less than 5%, it doesn't hurt to be at the table and know what's going on in
Yeah.
case. Because if we opt out of that, that'll be the same year that something bad happens down there that we get
Right.
to do something with.
I said, and it's just if there's a project that is going to be needed in that area, and there are things that, potential flood control, whatever,
Right.
we want to be part of it.
Right, and that's, I think, what the soil and water's big concern is for the decision to opt in, because we're only deciding whether to opt in or opt out of the planning process. So we would want to make sure that if we were to opt out, we would still want to make sure that we could get funding in this area should we want it. And that would definitely pivot our decision one way or another when we get to that. But at
To
this
bring
time, we're
the-
basically
But to
open.
bring the experience that, well,
Sure, yeah,
that I've been
absolutely.
to a lot of meetings with the North Fork, and that was the
Absolutely.
pilot. So to bring that expertise, and we have other commissioners, we have Candy Ojai, McLeod will be there, Meeker County too. So I foresee the South Fork thing going through real smooth, because of that experience that we
Sure,
have.
yeah.
And the same, I guess, with the Mississippi one, because, with up there at Stearns County, I think, does Candy Ojai have a little bit? Yeah, they do, they have
I think they
to.
have
You do?
no,
Or,
no, it's.
Meeker would though. Meeker,
Meeker has a little.
yeah, I think they would.
Yeah, Meeker has a little, and then Stearns, Sherburne, Benton. A little bit of Morris, there's some possibility of whether there'll be more partners
Okay.
in there too, because it's whether or not to split or, so. But
And then you have
in
an
general,
update on-
we're supportive of.
Then you have an update on the AIS committee. I know I was
Yeah.
at the soil and water meeting that was discussed, and looks like we're moving forward to kind of formalize this group, correct?
Yeah, so it's approved with a contingency on some bylaws at this point, but we're moving forward, and we're looking to have our first meeting late this year, very early next year, so that we can work on the planning process for next year's boating season. And if I recall correctly, Commissioner Vetch and Commissioner Hewsome were listed for that particular committee. But really, we're just moving forward and trying to get it going. So please keep an eye out on questions, concerns.
And the talk was at Soil Water that, early on, you probably need a few more meetings to get everything set up, but then it might just be kind of implementing the AS dollars and, be a lot less down the road.
More ad
so.
hoc?
Yeah, and I think we were talking very similar to the current schedule of the Water Task Force, where kind of have two on the outskirts, later in the season to wrap up budgets, and then one early in the year to start the year's budget, and then maybe two during the season, the boating season itself, to try and keep up with whatever's happening at the time.
Good,
So that's,
Great.
thank you.
Thank you for the updates and the information. Greatly appreciate it.
have a good day.
Yeah, me too.
Moving forward, Mark Mattice, Park and Rec Director. We adopt amendments, to those park ordinances. I think this is what the final stage here. I think they've come forward here about 2-3 times, it feels like, for
Good
discussion.
morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Last time I brought it forward was on September 24th after the final recommendation from the Parks Commission. It was laid over to this meeting. Not sure why we laid it over, but it was laid over.
Yeah.
Can't remember the real
We wanted
reason.
to see
So
your
the
smiling face
two
again.
amendments would be for section 9203 of the ordinance relating to general conduct, and that is the beer and wine at reserved facilities and intoxicating liquor served by a caterer under permit at those facilities. The other amendment is to 9207, which sets a final hour for the park operations. Rather than 6 a.m. till sunset, it'll be 6 a.m. till 10 p.m. year-round.
Which will make it a lot easier for
Yes.
our security forces to keep an eye on it.
Yes.
And that way they know
We already had the public hearing on this and stuff, right?
No, according to Attorney Kreiser.
We don't, it's not
We do not
required.
need to have a public hearing
Okay.
on these amendments to these
I'm
ordinances.
I'm
we're
I'm on your
losing-
side this time.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'll move forth the amendment change for the Park and Recreation.
I'll second that, and just a comment, I think it was just formalizing it because we had discussed changes at a board meeting, but, you know, just to see it in writing, I think that's why you're back.
Okay.
All right, motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Hewsome to adopt the ordinance 92.03 relating to general conduct. Would we like them done separately, I'm guessing, or collectively?
They can go together.
They can go together, and then also adopting 92.07 relating to general conduct.
Comes their attorney.
Uh-oh.
You would just move an ordinance amendment 19.3.
19.3, okay,
Okay.
all right,
That was my motion.
okay.
That's why I hired him.
That's why, that's why he's here, so to make sure we do the right thing. So we are adopting the ordinance amendment, section 92.03. Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Hewsome. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, ordinance is approved, amendment is approved.
Wait, you need the second one, don't we? Or
Nope,
9207?
So it was.
we don't have to adopt 9207, all right.
Oh,
Yep,
It
the
was
whole
for
thing.
both, yeah.
Okay,
You just said 9203, but it was 9203 and 9207 both.
I don't, he said we only had to adopt 9203, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem.
All right. If not, we'll be back here again with it. All right, look at that, we are not too far behind, we're doing quite well here today. Jill Nettlestead, a Health and Human Services worker, regarding the jail program coordinator, probation agent. And we also have Neil, I don't want to butcher the last name.
Mueller, yeah.
Hugh Mueller.
Hugh Mahler, okay.
Neil looks a little different than the last time I saw him.
And Noel Flesher. Good morning. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Jill Nettestead. I'm a social worker with Health and Human Services.
Neil Hummler from Wright County Court Services.
I'm Noelle Flesher, Wright County Jail Program Coordinator.
We're here today to talk about the Wright County Jail Release Assistance Program, just to kind of give an informational update on the program of what we're doing over at the jail. It's a collaboration between Wright County, excuse me, Health and Human Services and Wright County Jail and Sheriff's Department. It's led to the reduction in recidivism rates in our jail. The program began in August of 2018 and ran until January of 2019. The program met with 93 inmates and only one returned to the jail during that time. The program reinstated March of this year, and to this date, 88 inmates have been seen or taken advantage of the program, with only 4 returning to custody. I just wanted to talk a little bit about the services that the program has provided while the inmates are in jail. As far as mental health services, I often assist the inmates with calling doctors and therapists to set up appointments for after they get out of custody. Request medication vouchers from CAMI, which is the Community Adult Mental Health Initiative, for psychotropic medications while the inmates are incarcerated, because oftentimes they can't afford those medications while they're in jail. I assist with contacting doctors to request a 3-month supply of the medications and a friend or a family member on the outside so that they can pick up the medications from Walgreens or Walmart and have those dropped off at the jail. Ongoing contact with Rule 20 inmates to explain the process. Rule 20 inmates are those that are in there for, they are determined to be not competent to stand trial. So there's 2 different processes that those inmates go through. It's kind of explaining the process of determining whether they're not competent to stand trial and what that process looks like. I make referrals for diagnostic assessments and case management, and I meet with inmates just kind of having a hard time adjusting to incarceration.
Jill,
Yeah,
back up to that, the Rule 20 inmates.
yes.
If they're not fit to stand trial, aren't they supposed to be located somewhere else in a hospital or something?
There's a process for that. Once they are determined, it's determined that they are incompetent to stand trial, then a judge will make a suggestion that they get screened for a civil commitment, at which time it comes over to our office in Health and Human Services, and our screening team will screen them for a civil commitment. If we find that a civil commitment is appropriate, then they will be moved to a psychiatric hospital. So it's kind of explaining that process to those inmates, because sometimes if they are not determined to be a danger to themselves or others, they don't get moved to that psychiatric hospital. And at that time, then there's a different process that goes through.
Out of curiosity, when they're diagnosed with the Rule 20, and for them to move, how many, are we talking weeks, days, months, years?
No, is it supposed to be 48 hours? What is the? Once they are found to be civilly committed by a judge, they are supposed to be moved within 48 hours. But that depends on time and space in the
No, I know
facilities.
there's a huge shortage of
Yes.
mental health beds, so,
Yep.
yeah.
Any other questions with the mental health part?
No, I was just kind of curious on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. As far as trying to help the inmates find housing after they're released, which, I mean, we all know if they don't have a place to live, it's often easier to just get rearrested and have a roof over your head back in jail. I have lots of lists of low-income housing that I give out. I often help with applications and assist with phone calls and getting them on those lists for housing. I make referrals for grants and vouchers to help with housing costs. Benefits, check the insurance status. In other words, I can get into the computer system to check to see if they are still on MA or other insurances through the state. Help them apply for medical assistance and food support. I have also helped them contact Social Security to check the status of their Social Security and start the application process if they believe that they should be on Social Security disability. Neil does some of the employment stuff. I'll have him talk about that.
So once I had found out that Jill and Noel were doing this wonderful work over there, I decided, based on my position in court services as the employment and driver's license specialist, to join in because I wanted to assist with what they're doing. So what I do when I meet with people over there is specifically target driver's license, reinstatement, the whole program related to that. I also discuss employment options. I've got a list of different employers in the community that are willing to work with people who have diverse or difficult backgrounds. So it's basically getting them connected with those businesses. You know, one thing that I've found really quickly with this group is a lot of times they don't have any form of identification, which is going to hold them back for employment, housing, all those different needs. So that is one of the things that we're really working hard to get some form of programming that's like the prison system has it, where they leave the prison and they will have an ID. That is part of what happens when they leave a prison. I would like to have that leaving our jail as well. So that is something that I'm working towards. So when they walk out of our jail, they do have some form of identification, so then they can get a job, they can housing, because you need an ID. And you can't get your birth certificate without an ID, and you can't get a social security card without your ID and your birth certificate. So it's they get out there, they have nothing, they have no housing, and it's just a cycle, and they come back. So that's one of the biggest pieces that I'm doing when I meet there. The need is definitely there. I'm meeting with, I would say about, if I'm there 2 hours, I'm meeting with at least 10 people every time I'm there. And it's very impactful, it's very helpful, and I think it's, that part of it is going well since joining these two, so. And there's the programs piece of it.
So, yeah, mainly it's just a collaborative effort between the inmates that I already have in custody. Having been in the programs area for the last 5 years, I've seen the inmates that come back constantly with the needs that they have met before they left custody or even didn't follow up on the outside. We directed them just to the HHS building when they left custody. This grant and the funding that we put in place, it's limited, but bringing that piece inside the jail before they leave so that we know that they're taking those steps prior to being released. So that's kind of where the collaborative effort is.
You know, and I just want to make a quick compliment to the programs unit at the jail. They have 40 programs going right now in their jail, 40 programs. When I talk to inmates and they talk about the other facilities that they're coming from, there's nothing comparable to that. Our jail is amazing in terms of the programs and the work that they're offering the inmates. The opportunity that they're being given before they're released is amazing. So that's a huge compliment to our jail.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Dodd?
I do appreciate that we are setting up those people to succeed instead of to fail, by getting them set up with housing and possible jobs and IDs, which, yeah, you're absolutely right, that it's very difficult for them to do anything without that. So I applaud you three and whoever else has been working with you on it for trying to help these people out, which obviously, since you've only had a couple return, it's obviously succeeding.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the work you do.
Thanks. There's also things that we do as far as the chemical dependency portion, trying to get them set up with getting into treatment, coordinating the treatment. Public health, I've been working with public health, coordinating some services there, veteran services, and then some legal services. At the present time, funding for this program is a collaborative effort between Wright County Jail and CAMI, which is, again, is the Community Adult Mental Health Initiative grant. And funds restrict the number of hours that services can be provided at the jail. I'm only over there 4 hours a week. So I am very limited as the number of inmates that I can work with. Time is also limited due to the expectation to continue the full adult mental health caseload. So we have several areas that we'd like to expand. Coordinate MAT, which is medication-assisted treatment. And that's kind of a new program that public health and area providers are trying to get kind of off the ground and coordinate with the jail. Community follow-up services, so checking in with the inmates even after they're released to see if they have further questions. You know, getting them set up with employment, getting them rides to their interviews, doing that kind of check-in services with them. Helping facilitate decision points, which is a cognitive behavioral intervention program in the jail. Facilitate the fine forgiveness program, which is something that Neil is checking into doing. They do that in the prison system. Coordinate application process for Social Security card and Minnesota State IDs. And collaborate with DVS to actually apply for their driver's license. Those are all things that, I mean, areas that we would love to kind of delve into if we had more time to do those things over there, but that stuff is just not feasible right now.
Every penny spent on this program is actually saving money by keeping people out. I mean,
Yeah.
it's priceless for that. And I love the fact that you're telling these people where they need to be, when they need to be there, and what you need to be doing in the meantime. And that's the biggest thing, that when they don't know what they're supposed to do, they go back to what they had previously been doing. So I really appreciate you giving those tools to these individuals.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I was really excited to see this program, and, you know, way back when I worked in the jail, and people would say, well, you'll never see me here again, and it's like, oh, yep, oh, no, I think you'll be back in about a month when you make that statement. But, you know, they get out, they're so excited, and then reality hits, and they don't have these tools. And so this is, you know, I commend you too, as they've said, for getting this program, because, you know, it helps them to be successful again. And, you know, a lot of these people get caught up in bad situations and they end up in jail, and that just starts this cycle. So,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Dolan?
To be able to do additional expansion, what kind of funding are we looking at? And are there grants available? Or can we take pay away from Mike or something?
We're expanding, we don't need any money.
Okay.
I don't want Jamie, but she may ask you.
Can I
I really don't know what I'm talking about here, and I just really appreciate everything that they put together, and it's been really grassroots, you know, so Diane wrote a grant for Cammy, I think, and Jill just jumped in both feet and brought everybody along with them, so it's been great, and I think this is really Jill's passion, too. I think right now our capacity is, as Jill said, she has a full adult mental health caseload, so it is without another body or a part-time body, you know, the capacity is limited to the number of hours that we can do. So the funding is related to staff time equivalency.
Staff and social service.
Well, thank you for all this wonderful information.
Really appreciate it.
This is a program that I would like to still continue following closely as, you know, go forward, and hopefully it's something we can keep utilizing because it's saving taxpayers money
Oh, man.
and it's building a better society for everybody, so.
Sure.
Thank you.
You guys have any additional questions?
Yes. I do have one other additional question. And for future, you know, you had, from August 28th to January 2019, 93 inmates seen and only one returning to the jail. And then this other one, 88 inmates have been taking advantage of the program and 4 returning to custody. Out of curiosity, how many of those were from Wright County? And not that it makes any difference because we keep them out of jail, but I'm just kind of curious, did they end up in a jail maybe in Mille Lacs or somewhere else? Do we know that, or we just know they didn't?
I don't know that.
Okay, I would just be kind of curious to find out that, yeah, we made sure they didn't come back here, but did they go somewhere else? I'm just out of, you know, curiosity. That way you know for sure that the project is actually doing what it needs to do.
Otherwise, we could just buy bus tickets to like,
Yeah,
Send them up to International Falls.
Buy them a Happy Meal and shirt.
I think it's worthwhile too. And I think some of these people may be the first time that anyone really seemed to care about them.
I hear
And I
that
think
from a lot of the
that
inmates.
in and of itself can turn people around.
Even the ones that have been in the prison system, and those are the ones, you know, they're the ones that are supposed to have the programming to help them be successful when they get out. They've said that this has helped them more than, you know, when they've been in prison for 10 years, they didn't get this amount of help getting out and back on their feet.
No, I think that's totally where it is, because otherwise they just feel nobody cares and whatever, and it, you know, and you can't say it's their fault too a lot, because they probably burned bridges, but if they're at a point in their life where they do want to turn around, you're there to help them, and I think it's great.
This way, they can get, as soon as they walk out that door, they can have health insurance and food stamps ready for them when they walk out the door.
And Diane just gave me some good news as well, so the grant for 2020 is going to be about $50,000.
Oh, wow.
Coming through the doors for this program.
Great.
So, yeah,
Good.
so the money is following, and I think that's when you have those evidence-based things and you're seeing the results and everything else, so.
Do they
that's through CAMI.
And then County is that the 4-county consortium.
Do you have I mean, you have a little bit of statistics as far as the people that worked it and never came back to our jail, but do you have like a
Spreadsheet?
Yeah, I mean, one that did not go through your program, what the recidivism, I can never say that word, but what that is. I'm sure it's higher, though. I'm sure it's higher. I just wondering how high. Because I think they have, I do think, I mean, we don't have anybody, well, I think there's a lot of frequent flyers at the jail otherwise, so
There
this will cut down on that, so, thank you.
Commissioner Burrell, it's the meal plan and the housing.
Was it Otis? Otis?
Otis Mayberry's, yeah.
Commissioner Burrell must be reading the jail report every week to see if the same people are
See
there.
who the repeat people are. No, I just think there's a lot of them that come back, yeah. Actually, you do see that in the paper if you even glance through.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, we are still relatively on time. Chief Deputy Attorney Brian Asselson is going to come up here to approve the purchase agreement and lease purchase agreement for Trailblazer facility in the city of Buffalo. I thank staff who put a good deal of time into this to get it all together. They did vet it out quite well, Commissioner Burrell, per some of your questions the previous week.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. Yes, as part of the process of the county's acquisition of the Trailblazer Transit Facility on the north end of Buffalo, these are some of the final steps. In addition to under action item number 1, I indicate a purchase agreement. That is a document between the city of Buffalo and the county of Wright. The lease and purchase option agreement then is between Wright County and Trailblazer. In addition to those two documents, we also have an additional document, which I'll hand out in a minute, which is an access and easement agreement. You may have heard in the past that the city of Buffalo has a fiber hub for their fiber network located in this building. And so there's a short agreement, I think it's 2 pages, maybe 3, that would be in document signed by this County of Wright and the City of Buffalo, which would allow the City of Buffalo to access that equipment for, necessary maintenance purposes. Last Thursday, the Trailblazer Board met and approved of the lease and purchase option agreement. That's the only one that they're a signatory to. Last night, the City Council of Buffalo met, and I have not heard. I'm not sure if Mr. Chair has heard what the result was, but we'll need to get in touch with them and make sure that that they've approved of the purchase agreement itself and this access agreement. So let me hand these out while I'm at it. I also have a newer version of the resolution, which is the second item, authorizing signatures that are necessary. And the only real change on that is it incorporates this access agreement that has to do with the fiber hub. So I'll hand these out. Thank you. Resolution. Thank you. And this is that access and easement agreement. I lied, it's more than 2 or 3 pages.
You misspoke.
I misspoke.
We are talking Trailblazer here.
There's one proper verbiage for this one.
Mike, not everybody's going to get that one. That's a little esoteric unless you follow this a long time.
It only goes back 6 years.
So let me ask you first whether you have any questions regarding the purchase agreement itself. It's a fairly lengthy document. We've been through it. There have been some changes, slight changes made to the version that was put in your packet as of last week. The City of Buffalo's attorney had reviewed it. I can safely say that I'm comfortable with the changes. The only one that I think would have a financial impact on us had to do with in most purchase agreements, the seller gets the title commitment ready, and the City of Buffalo felt as long as we're bonding for this project, they wanted that to be covered out of the bond costs or the bond proceeds. So in other words, there were some wording changes that said that the buyer, Wright County, would pay for the title commitment, and we've already contacted Central Land Title here in Buffalo and are setting up the closing for on or about November 1st, so.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Velen?
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase agreement.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Potter for the purchase agreement our lease and purchase option agreement for Trailblazer facility in the city of Buffalo. Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, wasn't there something, it was brought up at the Trailblazer meeting, I was talking with one of the commissioners, there was something about the that we're doing something twice or something, I know the commissioner from McLeod County voted against it. He was telling me something, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but he said he brought it up at the Trailblazer meeting, that it was something that they were, maybe Bob knows about it, or? No. Oh, okay.
Well, he didn't vote against it. We talked about the fact that there was a discussion that, because we don't have FTA, depending on whether we're going to be allowed to have that front payment of that $350,000 of that, I guess I wouldn't call it prepayment, it's just the mitigation of the
That's what it
bonding.
was.
Yep. So we're still holding out that basically we will get approval to use that $350,000 to basically have to forego tax abatement of that property for that, if they pay that. But we won't know sometime hopefully next couple of weeks, we'll know if we'll get that approved or not.
But should we wait for that, though, to make sure? I mean, because wouldn't then that's kind
Well,
of...
either way, at this point, we've already accepted the bonds, the money's there, so we need to move forward with it either way. Either way, we're made whole on it, because if we have to go to the tax abatement route, Trailblazer is going to facilitate, and i.e. MnDOT with their funding, the cost of the abating the property every year, which is to the tune of what, like $3,000 to $6,000 roughly to abate that property?
Board, yes. I might have missed part of that. We will adopt the abatement policy. What we're going to do is, if we have these funds, we'll cancel that abatement for that year.
Yep.
Every year, we're going to have an abatement,
Yeah, right.
but we'll cancel it as long as we have the sufficient funds for it.
But we won't have as much cost involved into it if they can go the route of putting the $350,000 in the beginning, so we don't have to hold that property.
Correct, yep.
Then, this is probably a question I should have asked a while back, but when we were on the River Rider Board, we were told, because we just worked out of a pole shed, we were pretty low budget up there, and we weren't the Trailblazer thing. But anyway, they said if we put up a new building, the county would, put up a new building, that they could use the MnDOT things to pay the building, and the county would own it at the end. We would just be leasing it out to Trailblazer. This way, we're doing all this stuff, and we don't own it. Trailblazer owns it at the end. Why did we do it that way instead of having the building become a county building? I mean, we have such an investment already, and the state is making the lending, but if we could have had the state pay our lease and then pay our building off, wouldn't that be better? We would have something at the end?
But the OTAD, Office of Transit and Active Transportation now, what they're now called, has made a lot of changes in how they're doing those types of operations and those type of purchases. Those type of funding for buildings was maybe more palatable at that time by the Office of Transportation, but now they're looking at a little bit more of having these transportation systems have ownership of them on the backside of it.
But if we didn't buy the building, let's just say we found a building in Wright County, and we said, we'll buy the building and lease it to you, they would go with that, I'm sure.
Potentially, potentially.
Well, we're still members of the Trailblazer group, so if something happened to Trailblazer, we would still get, after that building was sold, we would still get something from it.
Percentage shares,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I just think it could have been set up to where we would have ownership of it at the end.
Well, they're making the payments.
I know, we're taking the risk right now, and we have nothing.
We have a building.
Trailblazer has the reward at the end. I mean, they own the
But if
building.
Trailblazer dissolved, you're going to get your percentage ownership of all buildings, just like Sibley and McLeod County, we would get percentage ownerships of
But I'm
anything that
Facility
was.
down there.
I'm just thinking, put off if they dissolve, but let's just say if it was our building and we're leasing it to them after 20 years, the building deteriorates a little bit and they need newer facilities, so they move somewhere else, well then, we would own it, we could sell it, we could do whatever we wanted with it, so, I don't know. I just think and I wasn't involved in this thing a lot, but I'm just thinking it would have been a better way to go, so. Brian, what say you?
What say aye?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we are owning the building at the mean point, but our lease agreement is to the fact that the intent is at the end of this bonding, that we would sell it back to Trailblazer. In the short term, we do own the building. I can't legally say that this agreement, did it actually spell out that we agree to sell it to Trailblazer for a specific dollar amount at this point? I don't even know if that was spelled in there.
That is not in the purchase agreement, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. It's in the lease and option,
Yeah.
purchase option agreement. And it's worth mentioning that, I mean, if Trailblazer ceased to be during the pendency of the lease and purchase option agreement, Wright County is still the owner of the building, so.
If they missed payments, then it would go back to Wright.
Yeah, there are default provisions in the documents, so.
So in the next 20 years, we essentially own the building.
Yeah, but, okay, so then are we keeping track, I should say Chief Deputy, are we keeping track of all of our time and hours that we put in? Because that's an in-kind donation to Trailblazer, and that's something that should be, remember I said we should have something, Lee, so we don't have to go back through 40 sets of minutes and whatever. We should be having a ledger and referring back to where those are. I don't know if that's being done or not.
Hours in terms of what?
Well, like, Brian's time and everything else that we put into this.
The bulk of this stuff has been done by a third-party attorney's office.
Mr.
you
Chair,
put a lot of
Commissioner
time
Burrell,
into it.
I do not keep track of my time. I could try and be something together, but the bulk of the drafting has actually been done by Julie Eddington, who is
Yeah,
our.
but you're reviewing it for us
Correct.
and whatever else. so-
And Bob's office is
Yeah.
involved.
So, but I'm saying, no, and that's just one example, but we have other things where we're putting extra money into this, and we need to be keeping track of that, because if there ever was a dissolution, that it can easily found. I'm just pointing it out, it was a problem that we had at River Rider when we dissolved. We knew we put money in, we put in-kind things in, we let them use the highway facility for parking the buses and stuff in there. We should have been charging for that instead of just saying, there, take it, because then when it dissolved, we got less share.
2020 hindsight.
Yeah.
I mean, and those are good points. I mean, that's just good practice all the way around. I mean, whether it was for the North Fork Crow
Yeah.
or anything that we are giving
Keeping track.
in-kind time to,
Right.
that,
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I mean, and some of it is outright. The 700,000 that we put in to buy buses last year, was it, or year
no,
before?
that's operating funds that we, that big, yeah.
No, but it's still, if there was a dissolution, that money should come back to
It
us.
will come back to us, and
Right,
it's all
but-
noted.
But we remember it right now because it was 2 years ago. But if this is 15 years later or 20 years from now, we should have something that we can readily go back and say, this.
There is, within Trailblazer's budget, there is internal accounts for Sibley, McLeod, and Wright County that basically show percentages that we have for operating funds. So every year, that based on what the annual adopted Trailblazer budget, so for next year, it's roughly $6.2 million, which basically between Sibley, McLeod, and Wright County, we have to maintain the operating cash of around 40% of that we have to have for operating cash until MnDOT reimburses us that funds, because that's how MnDOT operates. They don't give you the money up front, you spend it, then they reimburse you. So basically of that 30-40%, that is percentually divided out between the three counties based on our ridership shares. So at this point, it's the 45, 35, 15.
Yeah, and I understand that, but that percentage, Mr. Chair, is different than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where we actually put investment into Trailblazer in hard dollars. Those hard dollars should come back.
Well, the hard dollars, that is that operating cash. That is that 700,000 you're talking about.
yeah.
That is that operating funds that is accounted for, that if it was dissolved, that would be a very clean cut, that we'd be able to reimburse us
But
that
it's
money
just
back.
like, I guess we just have it on a piece of paper somewhere and say, and put 700,000 into Trailblazer for bus purchases, operating, whatever, on this date. Put in this and that.
Well, hardest thing is it's not a true number. So when we buy capital purchases, new buses, okay? And you would say we operate it for 5 years. Now that bus our local share of it is 15%, okay? And that 15% is diluted out by the 3 different entities based on ridership percentage. So 45% of it of that 15,000 is Wright County's. Now, you'd have to have a schedule on that bus because it would say after 5 years, that bus is right at Trailblazer dissolves. Now, we go to auction, we sell that bus for $8,000. That would be the percentage that you would dilute out as to how much we would get versus Sibley and McLeod County on that individual bus. Now, you take that times the 32 buses in the system, but they're all at different ages, so they're at different values.
So we didn't give them money that would ever come back. We bought buses, and then they're going to depreciate, and when they're depreciated out, our money's gone.
No, well,
Well,
right
it's not there,
now,
but-
the auction sales of the buses just goes back into the system to buy down the cost of local share on new buses. So when because they get old, you auction them off, you take that money and you recycle it back in to buy new buses.
So if
Now,
the-
what would happen is if the JPA, in theory, would dissolve, you would take all the buses, you'd sell them all off, and then you'd take the local shares, the percentages, the 45s, the 35s, and the 20%, the ridership local share, and that's how you would fund back the counties, because that's how much you percentageally paid in. You may have to do a running average, because if the ridership percentage changed over the last 5 years, you maybe would have to average the local share percentages, which would be a negotiation between the entities, because our local share last year was less than it is this year, and the next year it'll be more, so you maybe would have to.
So we
that'd be a
wouldn't just
finesse.
get our 700,000 back.
No, we would get our $700,000 is a different number. That's a number that is a hard, fast accounted number that sits in a separate account that we have for just Wright County. That's
We have
Wright
that
County's
written
money.
down
That's
somewhere.
written down, yep. The capital purchases that we put in that actually have a flexible or a fluctuating value because they depreciate, they lose value, the buses, buildings, things
See,
like
I
that.
don't care what they did with the 700,000. It's just if they dissolve, I want my 700,000.
You're gonna get your $700,000 back. That is a very clear-cut, very simple number, and if you want, I'll go get a printout for you.
It's not really mine, it's other people's money.
It's other-
So.
I know, we don't want to talk like it's our money, but the county taxpayers will get their $700,000 back. All right. You feeling comfortable, Commissioner Burrell?
I'm probably just going to, I'm not going to oppose this. You guys are all on it. I'm just going to probably be abstain on this. I just don't feel good about it. I wasn't, and it's my fault. I wasn't involved enough on it, but I don't want to stamp my name on it because I just don't, I'll just abstain.
Abstaining still
Is a no.
stamps your name on it.
Yep.
Abstaining still, that's a no.
Okay.
It
well,
still
whatever.
stamps your name on
I
it.
did have a
so
good-
Makes no difference.
Conversation with
I think
Commissioner
it's going to pass
Kruger
anyway.
from McLeod
Yeah.
County, and he did not oppose this lease purchase agreement. So,
Mr. Chair, can I ask what the motion was again? I just,
I don't-
it's
I don't know.
been a while.
Glad and second by me.
So we had a motion and a second to approve the purchase agreement and the lease purchase option facility.
Do we need
Okay,
separate? Do we need separate ones?
Not necessarily, because the resolution actually is what authorizes your signatures on all the documents. So I'm fine with that motion, but I just wanted to mention that the lease purchase agreement does incorporate that expansion of the building. And so that's an important thing that I don't think we've mentioned today, that the county's basically building that for Trailblazer, and Trailblazer's lease payments to us will cover that.
Correct.
That debt service, correct?
Yeah, and we need to get this signed so that they can start.
So they can break ground.
So are we going to
building
own
up right
the addition after the building's all done, paid off then?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Burrell, we will own the addition until the end of until the lease agreement goes belly up, or until the end of it, at which time Trailblazer can purchase the whole shebang.
Yep.
Is that a legal term, shebang?
that
Yes.
shebang.
Yeah.
I like that. Make sure you put that in there.
I've heard that on Judge Judy before.
All right, so we have a motion, we have a second. Hearing no other comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, the resolution's the next
No,
one.
the first one's purchase.
Yeah, this is
agreement,
just a
second.
voice vote.
This is a voice vote, the next one's a resolution.
Next
Yep.
one's a resolution.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, the document that is not listed on the action item there is that access and easement agreement, and I can just breeze through that if that would, I'd like I'd like to have you approve of that as well. And I realize you're just seeing it for the first time, but again, it's giving the city of Buffalo the right of entry because they're not going to own the building anymore. They need to get in and be able to service their fiber hub that's located in the building. Gary Ludwig from Trailblazer sent out an email late yesterday kind of describing where it is in the building, and he had even had the dimensions of the box. So we're going to somehow try and incorporate that into the appendices or the exhibits to this access agreement, maybe even a sketch showing where it is. Because one of the provisions, you'll notice on the second page, the city in like 3 and 4, they're required to maintain this equipment, insure this equipment. Number 5 is important. Trailblazer really wanted this, that if there's any change in the size, scope, or purpose of the fiber infrastructure, both the county and Trailblazer need to agree to that. And this agreement runs concurrently with the lease agreement. City agrees to hold us harmless for anything any damage that's caused by having that there, that type of thing. And that's basically the agreement. But I want to make sure that we also approve this. So that, if I could have a separate action item on approving this, that'd be great. And again, it's just a voice vote.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
Are they going to be given a key to allow access at any time, or is it just?
They already
strictly-
have that, and I believe that's what I read through that they have access.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Delayden, I think somewhere it talks about, okay, in number 2, it says upon reasonable advance notice to Trailblazer. So it's,
Which is
we're
typical.
the lessor, the owner of the lessor, we're not going to be there day in and day out, but Trailblazer is, and so it does call for advance notice to them.
Okay, I was just kind of curious.
I mean, the big key important part is that the fact that they're going to indemnify and then hold us harmless.
Oh,
I mean,
I agree.
that was the biggest piece, because that's some expensive stuff that's in there, and I don't want us to be liable for it, so.
Correct.
As long as it doesn't start a fire. I'll make a motion to approve the access and easement agreement.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Potter for the access and easement agreement. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this is a resolution.
Is this a
This is
resolution?
just a voice
No,
vote.
this is a
correct?
voice vote, okay.
This is
okay.
a second part of.
This one wasn't in there, that's why I got
Correct.
myself here, okay. And then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. All right, access and easement agreement approved.
Thank you. And then, Mr. Chair, I'll just note that the resolution that I handed out today, the only difference is in the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4th whereas paragraph, where it lists the documents that are being presented to the board, and it adds that number 3, the last 2 lines, the access and easement agreement. So otherwise, it's the same as what you had in your packet. And this resolution was drafted up by the Julie Eddington, who's our bond counsel. It just formalizes the authorizing of signatures of all of these various documents. So, and, if there are additional documents that Bob, for instance, needs to sign as part of the closing, it authorizes that as well, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the signatures on the necessary documents.
I'll second that.
All right, motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewson for adopting the resolution authorizing signatures on necessary documents regarding the Trailblazer facility acquisition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Resolution, aye.
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 I'm going to abstain. I think that ends up being a no, I think so.
Aye.
All right, motion passes 4-0-1.
Thank you.
You don't get tied here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going down to items for consideration. I know I didn't get a chance to talk with you, Mr. Kelly. You want to work with me here, and we'll talk through the Committee of the Whole on October 15th, having to do with tax abatement and intergovernmental loans. It's kind of a deep conversation. Let's see if we can kind of summarize this down somewhat. I don't really want to go over this word for word.
Certainly, we got into some fairly detailed discussion, so I'll try and cover it at a high level. I think staff did a very good job of trying to catch the nuance of some of the discussions in the minutes, but I'll try and summarize it. Basically, we had a meeting to discuss the tax abatement and intergovernmental loan discussion we've been having at the county regarding some projects that have come forward. We had invited out Bruce Kimmel, who's our municipal advisor from Ellers, to kind of talk through some of the different things that we are able to do or not do relating to our policies. One of the things that we were reacting to is a discussion and a proposal that we'd received from a group in the city of Otsego regarding a development they're looking to doing in the county's involvement in that. The way that we had drafted up the policies would not necessarily jive with what we were able to do. So that first part of the meeting really was a discussion on our different options, depending on what the county's appetite and desire is for future efforts in economic development. If we would like to pursue a economic development authority, we had discussion on our current economic development partnership that we have and potentially other partnerships that we may create, a HRA or a joint development authority. From that first part of the meeting, I think staff took away that there's more research that needs to be done. We need to come back with the board and help you make an educated decision and further discussion on how we want to move forward relative to economic development efforts from the county standpoint. The second piece, we talked a little more specifically about the Otsego project that was brought before us on several different options, how it was presented to the board initially, and kind of discussed the considerations the board may want to have relative to that proposal. Ellers did a nice job of walking us through some of our options and was going to take back and follow up with the city of Otsego, as we did share the same municipal advisor with some of our thoughts and proceeding moving forward. So I don't know if you want to dive into that in a large amount of detail, but follow-up discussions have taken place regarding that between Ellers, county staff, and Otsego. So that would not be part of these minutes, but I just wanted to throw that out for your information. So very high level. Is there other information you'd like to add?
That's perfect. You
Okay.
did way better than I could have ever done, so.
Okay.
There's only one modification that I did want to make is on the 1, 2, 3, 4th line from the top on the 1, 2, 3rd page, where it says the county board should specify, it should say could specify the development that will occur with the city as a partner.
Could, yeah.
And, Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes.
Speak to this? So what kind of brought this up, it's because it's not a manufacturing company. If it was a manufacturing company, they could use tax increment financing, and we probably would never have heard about this. Am I right, Mr. Lyden? Okay. So because it's like a grocery store type thing and the other stores in there, it doesn't qualify. And so we're looking for a way to kind of do a TIF without that name or whatever. But it was brought up, and it's not in the minutes, but it may be later in I think it was still at the meeting, but where we probably want to scrutinize the owner or the facility, the store, whatever, because it was brought up that they might have gone to tax court just about every year as part of their business plan.
It's not a might, they have.
They have.
Yep.
So that would, and this was, like I said, we're looking at an individual thing, what brought this up, but then we're trying to back up and say, how do we make this work for the whole county? Am I right on that?
Yep.
And that's where it gets complicated, really complicated. So I don't think we really came up with an answer, but on this particular thing, with them going to tax court, there would have to be some agreement that you're not going to go to tax court on any of your properties. You're going to, it's just going to be assessed it, and there would have to be some agreement like that, because we want a partner that's kind of working with us, not working against us.
Exactly. Agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
And Mr. Chair, I thought, my understanding too is this was to build the infrastructure, not to actually, help with financing
Yeah,
the
no.
store.
No,
It would be building the infrastructure. so they
Stormwater,
could- Yeah,
roads.
so they could bring the store in there. So that's different too.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Doyle.
Not that we've made any decisions yet on if we went with a EDA or a modified EDP or whatever, But I know Bruce had suggested that as the board, we could be the EDA. And if that's the way we do decide to go in the future, what I would recommend is that we expand it to a 7-member board, and we get somebody from one of the larger cities and somebody from one of the smaller cities or townships to sit on the board. So that way you have additional ideas, both from a larger community and a smaller community to help
Yeah.
drive stuff like that.
And I don't know, I don't, it doesn't show up in the minutes, but I just don't want an EDA. I think it's just something that, I want business, and I think we could draw business in here by, you know, our tax base, our low taxes, and we're a growing county. I think it's going to come anyway. I don't like tax increment financing, and I know we have to do it because all our neighbors are doing it, but it really should be that business should survive on its own, and if it doesn't make it, it doesn't make it. And I know I see Mike, it's just, that's what I'd like to see, but it's not reality. But now doing an EDA, what we do in government when we have these things, we pick winners and losers, and I mean, it's just inevitable. You have to do it because you're saying we're gonna fund this one doesn't meet our criteria, whatever it is. I don't know, I just don't like
And
it.
then this is something for future discussions.
Yeah.
But, you know, regarding TIF, Charlie, there are actually some places where it actually does make sense.
Right, it's for blighted properties
Right.
essentially. Otherwise, you're not collecting much
Right.
tax now.
Blighted property or property that is going to have some fill brought in, which I know Otsego did that on one location, is that they had to bring in a lot of fill in order to make it useful.
The soil
Well,
corrections.
it's a lot of this is about creating your own destiny, you know, and being able to control the quality of life within your county. And this is just one of the tools that you can use by creating an EDA, that you can enhance the quality of life within your county by attracting the right businesses and putting in the right infrastructure for these businesses to thrive. And like I said, there is the downside, that you are playing that winners and losers game. So more discussion that'll come down the road.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you all recall, the beginning of this conversation was because of, in the Wright County Economic Development Partnership, we had some limitations with the MIF money that said there's over $200,000 sitting in an account, and we're having a hard time because that's what's called gap financing, and it's limited to $50,000. Okay, and that's where the problem started, because a lot of these businesses, 20 years ago, that model worked great, but today, 50,000 isn't enough to cut it, and they're limited to go that any higher than that. So the idea was, let's go before and try to put $1 million into our economic development, our EDP, and have them facilitate how we're doing this. And then it morphed into tax abatement and morphed into everything else but what the original intention was. And then the discussion came, okay, with Mr. Dwayne Northagen retiring next spring, this is the time to have that talk. Do you want to keep with the EDP, EDA, combination of both, or how do you want to do this? One of the frustrations that this county is going to continue to have is if they think they're going to find another Dwayne Northagen, the needle in the haystack isn't there anymore, because we've had some really dynamic people in the past, and the support level wasn't there, so they left to go find their fortunes elsewhere. Two superstars that I'm just going to bring to mind is Heidi Pepper and Ted LaFrance. Okay, they've moved on to better things, but for a little more support here, they might have been able to stay here. Right now, the partnership is kind of like that conundrum. Okay, we got this money sitting here, we can't do a thing with it because any of the businesses that need the help, they can't meet these criteria because the MIF has so many ties to it.
Now, is that a state statute?
Yes, that's a state, yes.
Okay, so there's no way of changing that at all?
Well, they have a program where you can pay a portion of it back and then it's released from all the strings. But the problem is we have quite a bit of money out there yet, and that's not part of we can pay that back. It's only the money that's sitting in the account now. And when you do the analysis on it, we really didn't pay to give them 1/3 of that $200,000 back when you have the larger amount sitting out there yet. I mean, so it was one of those, if we had all the money in the account, we might do it, but if all the most money's not in the account. We just need to modify this, because if you look at what other counties are doing, and I agree with Commissioner Burrell, that there's, pick winners and losers, and the neighbors around us are doing this, and if we want to try to get in the game with some of these bigger business, not necessarily Shutterfly, Google, and that kind of stuff, but more of your
Mod Paw shops.
yeah, a little bit mom pond, just a little bit more expansion, because that's what we're doing now, is expanding those ones. But some of those players just need that gap financing, just has to have a little bit higher threshold for them to make it. The thing is, we're not making a decision on anything here, but you just need to have that conversation, and I do appreciate Bruce Kimmel come and explain what you can and can't do.
Right.
Because that does help. And now the guidance is, where do we want to go from here? Because I don't want to have this discussion next April again. When we've had this preliminary, we do nothing. April rolls around, he retires, now what do we do?
If we can just stretch it out for one more year, I'll be gone.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and the recommendations, which are staff will research the feasibility of a combination of the EDP, EDA entity. Staff will continue discussion regarding Otsego proposals and investigate an option to buy bonds from the city to fund infrastructure.
And I want to second that, but Commissioner Hewson, could we also say to also look into the tax court filings and have that be considered?
Well,
I don't know if that's
not part of the minutes.
well, it actually, it wasn't, but I think it was part of our discussion at the end.
We had some discussion about that, but
Yes, Mr. Chair and Board, we did have some discussion with that and did relay that on to the city as well. As part of moving towards any agreement, we will have to have some agreements on what the minimum
Right,
value
and that's
will
a-
be on these properties.
But I think Commissioner Burrell's concern isn't just that property, it's all like
Right,
properties within the county.
Sure.
Owned by them, that they would need to be coming into some sort of an agreement with.
Yeah, we're not gonna give them something here and then fight them on 5 other fronts,
Yep.
right.
you know? Okay, but anyway, it will get considered later anyway, for sure. I'll second the
All right.
motion.
Motion by Commissioner Hewson, second by Commissioner Burrell, to approve the minutes and recommendations from the October 15th Committee of the Whole. No other discussion, hearing any? All right, no other discussion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Minutes and recommendations are approved. Technology Committee, if Commissioner Dahlheiden, if you'd like to swiftly walk us through those, that would be wonderful.
Oh, gee, thanks for the warning.
I know. But you knew it was coming.
Yeah, I know it's coming. And I was there and you weren't.
I wasn't, I know. I gotta replicate myself. I can't be in 2 places or 3 places at once.
The Technology Committee met on the 9th. 3 things were kind of discussed. One regarding the ERP. Our county administrator told us what was happening with that. And the ERP administrator position closed on the 27th. And they had did some interviews. I don't know where that sat. If we had some good candidates, if I remember correctly.
We did, correct. We're in the process of doing some backgrounds right now, so.
Okay, great. So hopefully we'll have that. And then one of the business BAs, business analysts, will be strictly working on this project with this new ERP person. So that was informational only. Projects is on pace to keep progressing, and hopefully that's going to work well. Actually, it will work well. Project progress, the IT director, Matthew Fambe, present the committee with a prioritized list of active projects for November and December. There are several types of projects. You know, one, keep the lights on, one that we need to accomplish, that sort of stuff. And all 3 categories need to be looked at to provide true transparency of work. They are working on getting it so that they'll have better ideas on how long it's going to take to do these sort of things. The committee discussed the CAMA project. I was at the CAMA presentation, and it, I don't know, it was, what it was promised and what it delivered were kind of two different things. Kind of a bait and switch. Oh, yeah, this will do all that, but no, that costs more money. No, yeah, we can do that, but no, that's more money. So what they were given as a price is, from what I'm understanding, not anywhere near what the cost is going to be. And it really still irritates the heck out of me that we have to do this sort of stuff because of Minnesota's extremely complex property tax system, which the CAMA is just one part of that.
Yep.
And then there's some servers that need to get replaced because there were 2008 platforms, and we're going to 2016 platforms. I asked why we don't go to 2019 and, the newest ones, and they say, we don't want to be the guinea pig. We want to let other people deal with that. So we know the 2016 platform is tried and true. It's going to be good for, 10 years or so,
You're better off being on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge, right?
Right. Yeah, and going to 2019, we would definitely be on the bleeding edge. Then the process was talked about intake projects and a system that they're working on, dealing with that. Trying to figure out how to do low-hanging fruit. There's a couple of different questions on some of the other projects that are out there. HHS call center, it was split up into two different things. They were looking at solutions for remote access as well as call center functions, and that's been split into two separate functions because one has nothing to do with the other. They talked about what the University of Minnesota is using for the for the remote access, from the call center. From my understanding right now is our conference calling system is that if we exceed 6 people, it cuts out. We can only handle that many people on a conference call. So they're looking at some alternatives for that sort of stuff. And they also included an active project list with the department authorizing it and what it all actually is, too. Information technology, chances are that's more of a keep the lights on, update, that sort of stuff. So it was information only, recognized that the HHS call center upgrade is a separate project from county remote access and that both are being addressed independently. And the county remote access is for on a snowstorm or something that people can still get work accomplished or for those that are working from home for whatever reason. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and
I'll second that.
the minutes.
All right, motion by Commissioner Dahlheiden, second by Commissioner Burrell for the approval of the IT minutes from October 9th. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes recommendations are approved. Advisory Committee. Commissioner Burrell, we'll start on this side. You want?
I'm going to let Commissioner Potter do the owners committee. We met last Wednesday. He's much better at it.
You don't have the minutes anyway yet.
Yeah, and anyway, no, we had fair board elections last night, and they had all of the candidates, but there was no opposition, so they had all elected on a slate, so. Anyway, no, I didn't really have anything else.
We had the district AMC meeting yesterday for Association of Minnesota Counties in Cambridge and Isani County, and I thought it was very, very good. One of the better meetings we've had.
It was a different format.
It was a different format, and Dave, Mayor Dave,
Bartholomew.
is that what it was? Okay.
Circle Pines, Mayor.
Circle Pines, yep. Mayor, he facilitated a sort of a conflict resolution format, and we kind of went through a few things with that. But then we had a lengthy, we met in our groups and discussed transportation, how can we, what are our ideas for providing the $200 million gap that we have every year to just essentially kind of maintain our system. So it was good. It was very good.
Any good desserts there?
They had good desserts. They had treats when we got there. They had, a good lunch and really good, little good desserts. Yep.
I saw the pictures, but
So this last week, I
I would have liked it, huh?
Yeah, you would. I had an extra one for you, Charlie.
I did too.
So last week, I attended with Commissioner Burrell the Soil and Water meeting. We had a good discussion about the AIS committee and what the makeup of it would look like, and we're looking to use the Lake Association member, the COLA, to basically appoint one spot. Then we also have some active user groups that will be looking forward to appoint one spot to that board. And then we're also going to look for another elected official outside of the county board and outside of Soil and Water, because Soil and Water will have board will have two members on there, the county board will have two members, and then we're going to look for another elected official somewhere in the county to sit on there as well, wanting to have them as kind of a non-bias between the active users and the COLA. So it should be a good diverse group, hopefully have some good conversations, and see where it goes forward with that. Had a meeting and working with a orderly annexation agreement with Clearwater and Trailblazer. We adopted our operating budget for the new 2-year budgeting cycle. So at this point, the roughly $13.4 million over the next 2 years was what we were granted from OTAT. I mean, it take me a little while not to say MnDOT, but I'll get that figured out. And then the rest of today and most of tomorrow, I will be in CMRP interviews for our RFQ for a planner. So we're getting closer. It's been very busy times with that Central Minnesota Regional Partnership. We'll be back at our meeting on Thursday morning this week. If any of you'd like to join us, we will be hopefully finally adopting our new JPA. I think after much diligence, it's completed.
And that's at 7:30?
7:30 in the Sherburne County Boardroom.
Sherburne County Boardroom.
Yep.
Did the boardroom get moved, or is that still in the same location? You would
I
know.
can't
You weren't around.
It moved.
They moved?
Yeah.
I think it moved.
It's pretty easy to find though.
From how long ago? I mean, it's been,
Over a year, a little over a year ago.
So, yeah, those are what's happening at this point this morning. Very Central Care Foundation Monticello. I was lucky enough to, that's hence my reason being late. I was the MC for the breakfast this morning, about 300 people in attendance. It was a great event for a great cause, for all the great stuff that Central Care Health Monticello does.
good.
Yeah, the AMC district meeting I thought was really very unique. The gentleman that did the dispute resolution actually works for the state of Minnesota doing that actual thing. So hopefully he's going to be doing some work with the legislators to help solve some of those problems.
What an optimist you are.
Yeah, I am. It was really kind of funny, we're talking about our concerns with funding for county roads, and then I took off and went home a different way, partway on 95. And I couldn't believe how rough 95 was. I mean, some of the state highways are just
Oh, yeah.
I drove down to Rochester a couple weeks ago, 52. Oh my gosh, boom, 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 boom. It was like I was driving a lumber truck,
Yeah, well, it's kind of like what 94 was in that one area too. You go to the outside because the inside one is, yeah,
They
you bounce around.
grounded as much as they could without getting the rebars exposed.
Yeah. So anyway, it was really good. And tomorrow I'm actually going to be up in St. Cloud for the land use planning up at Kelly. And I'll let you know more about that next week, and then let you know how Charlie has been doing everything wrong in the planning and zoning. So I'll be an expert then after tomorrow.
when you go up there, I want you to remember though, what planning and zoning, why it started. I have a book you can read. It was
Well, I'll get all my information tomorrow.
No, but it's basically to keep the undesirables away from you.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's what started planning and zoning.
Well, it didn't work over by Waverly, did it?
I don't know. And then what it does, then it increases the value of the property all around so that the poor people can't afford to buy. Yep, so it's kind of a bad thing that what started it. Houston, Texas does not have planning and zoning. They seem to be doing just fine, so. Yep, and their land values are a lot cheaper and it's more affordable, but I said we restrict the use of the land and it makes it more valuable. And then you have people that they don't want to change that because if they loosened up the planning and zoning rules, their land values would go down, and they would. So it's a, you know, I don't like I don't like why it started, and it seems to be perpetuating, and a lot of people like it though, so.
All right.
Well, first off, I want to say thank you for Commissioner Delight. Going to go to land use because I was going to bring that up if somebody's actually going to go there tomorrow. Second thing with Commissioner Vetch, I do want to thank you and again Mayor Castle for all the work of the Trailblazer Board and understanding the sense of urgency to get our funding level up to where we want, so we're not stuck at that level service down lower. I mean, it was a race against the clock on that one, and you know, MnDOT was trying to work with us, but we had to take the steps to get to that level, and we were rewarded for it pretty good, which is now, that's no matter what the funding cycle goes at the legislature, now we have a base level of service up closer to where it should be, not 20 or 30% behind.
Absolutely. Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Potter, and thank you for the recognition.
Well, the thing is that some people, unless they're involved in it, don't really understand what the center, when they set those levels of service there, you're locked in for a while. You know, and for you to acquire more buses, more service, more, which we're only utilizing, what, 30% of our county for transit services, it kind of tells you there's a lot of blue sky sitting out there, but I don't want to be having to play catch up the whole time. The other thing, the owners committee, I'll let Commissioner Burrell go.
I didn't even bring the minutes. Did you bring them?
I don't need to bring the minutes for
Okay.
that. Owners committee, where it's basically 60% of the project is completed. And now it's that indoor tedious work with not only the courtrooms, which is all climate controlled, everything else to put the woods in there, and the starting to fill in some of the grids are going on the ceiling, are going in more of the buildings, more of the rooms. Rooms have been painted, chambers have been painted. They're doing some walls down into the counter should be there this week for the jury assembly area. And that's nice space they got there now. If you've ever been upstairs here, that's kind of tight. The new one is nice. And the jury deliberation rooms are just missing some fixtures is all they're doing, waiting there on that. I do applaud the facilities director and the maintenance department. They had the wisdom enough to put a door in on the third level that they can access the roof of the jail instead of having to go through security to do that. That was a late add-on and we approved a while back, but I do want to know that they saw, hey, how do we get over there? Because otherwise, to get up on the jail roof, you'd have to go through security and back around and get up that one. So it's kind of nice to have that there. All the electrical, there's just minor little things as far as we approved the cell boosters.
The cell boosters, so you'll be able to use cell phone pretty much anywhere, except the courtrooms, you still can't use it in there.
So
the other thing, Commissioner Potter, too, though, in the courtrooms, there's kind of like we have the curved rail here. They're having trouble getting a surface that's going to be durable, yet can still make the bend.
Right.
And I guess Cambria is working on something, but this has been on our docket for the last couple months now.
Correct.
And Alan, they had a product up and they thought would work, and Alan said it did not pass the scratch test. So
with the beginning of that, it was the company said they could do that curve, and it turned out they can't do that curve.
Right.
So
Yeah.
a little bit of bait and switch on that, but they're working through that. that. Also,
Commissioner Potter, didn't they say that the Cambria solution was going to be quite costly? I mean, that was our last resort if we had to go to Cambria, because Cambria was substantially more than anybody else for the solution. Is that, are we kind of down to that because we've tried
down
everything
close-
else?
Yes, we're
All right.
in that neighborhood.
Yeah, see, I don't understand why we have to do that, why we can't just utilize a good hardwood, oak or something like that to,
Well, that,
which can be machined to where you need it to be and stuff.
I mean, here we have a laminate, and that held up for, it's coming apart now, but it held up for, what, 20 years,
Yeah, well, part of the issue is though, I mean, laminate, but I would think a solid.
No, but I mean, if you did, I agree with you, if you put a good hardwood on there, I mean,
And you
you
seal
shouldn't
it
have
good.
people, the
No.
jurors and different people in the courtroom going up scratching with their keys anyway, so.
Just like if you were there, be up there banging to the judge.
Well, and I don't think that they would be using the jury box like they do now. I mean, we have our shackled people sitting in our jury box, but I don't think in the new courtroom, we're not going to have shackled people sitting there resting their handcuffed hands in our jury box like we currently do.
Well, this wasn't for the jury box, this was for up.
The judges.
Because I thought they were using the same thing on the
bench
jury box too, wasn't it? I can't
That I
remember
do
the
not know.
discussion on it,
I don't know either.
but
No, I understand that one of the bathrooms for one of the judges was already set up.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
that
had
was
the AOC
pretty
toilet
fancy.
in there.
I know I got, for some reason, I got.
You got blamed?
I got blamed and I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, right.
yeah, right.
Yeah, it's they got it take out from
Yeah.
the jail. It's kind of funny.
Seen that,
It's
it's
the
good.
same one AOC said they're making them drink out of the toilet. It's a sink toilet combination. It's all stainless steel, one unit.
I think it's efficient.
It was funny. I mean, they put it in the wrong chambers because they're supposed to put it in McPherson's, but they put it in the wrong chambers, but they still pointed out and she thought it was funny. The other thing that came up is for fingerprinting and what have you, Captain O'Malley wanted a sink by the booking or whatever that area was, they call it Rule 5 or whatever they call it.
Wash their hands.
To wash their hands, and it was over $9,000 to put a sink in there.
Oh,
Really?
That was like, in
because it's
no
so late in the
way.
game or what?
We told them
We
to
could
get,
use wipes or something and have
Yeah.
a.
They go down the hall.
or walk down the hall and.
Correct.
do that.
Because
Wipes and then
to do that
That's-
this late in the game is, that's
Absolutely.
not
That's
happening.
not somebody thinking.
Because, well, the thing is that, they should have been there at the beginning, think of that, but like I say, the perfect building's always the next one, no matter what you do on these things, but that was an absolute no way is that happening. The other thing was with the security cameras and some lighting things that we're also incorporating the jail upgrades into our bid. That's why a couple of those bids are coming in a little higher than we anticipated, because we had to do the jail anyway. We just incorporate, make sure it's all the same equipment going at the same time. And especially the cameras are 10 years old, and it's hard to believe it's been there 10 years already, but,
Yep.
they definitely need upgrading.
Almost 11.
Well, I think they want to match the technology with this building
Right,
and the
they-
jail, so they're going to
yeah.
upgrade to the digital.
Correct, and for the piping for the conduit for the generator has all been all done now, all bored through there. So that's good. Like I say, the generator cost on that is the switch gears and different things in there to make all three buildings work. That's a little more expensive than a person realizes until they start pricing it, but it's still cheaper than the alternative of having a separate generator, much cheaper.
Especially when we have something that works.
And IT had with one of the conduits coming up where it comes up, they were having a issue with where it was coming into the one room. And I think they were meeting afterwards to resolve that because it comes out of the floor and has to go up into the ceiling grids and work around. And I think there was some confusion on how that was going to work out, but I know they met afterwards to take care of that issue. I don't think it was anything major, just make sure that all people understand what the purpose and scope and what they're doing there. Because we've had a few players come in for the IT end of it, because for a while it was Adam and then it was Sherry a little bit, and it's bounced around a few different people and trying to get everybody. Pat was there for a while, now it's the gentleman, I can't remember his name right the second.
Matthew? Oh, Mark.
Mark.
Mark Kellogg?
Mark, and there was another gentleman from IT was there also.
Stoller, probably.
Matt was,
Mark Stoller, the communications
Oh, that.
that one.
phone.
Okay.
And
So, next thing with the District 5, the transportation part was the TFAC report was out for a long time. The Engineer Society enhanced that. I've seen this movie a few times before, but it's still good information to go. And the problem we have is with the legislators is not very many of them were county commissioners to start with, so they don't realize what they're doing. They don't understand the whole process and how many county. You can tell them till you're blue in the face. We still have some commissioners that believe that the gas tax money goes for light rail, which it does not. It's constitutionally dedicated for roads and bridges, but they still can't get that out of their mind. That's been the big divide, and the problem I've had with AMC, because I come from the League of Minnesota City side, is the League, Transportation Alliance, engineers are all heading this way, and AMC seems to want to veer off this way. And until they get more lined up with everybody else, you're not going to get any real success at the legislature. I did hear on the radio with Representative Erdahl that there was $1.9 billion in bonding requests, pretty much, so they did their little bonding tour, and they're not going to go over $1 billion in bonding, which you pretty much knew that going into it. Thing with the library board last week, we approved the work plan. Sherburne County wasn't overly thrilled with how that worked out because a couple of their members, I think, were not quite paying attention as well as they should have. We got a few things that are going on. St. Michael's looking to get up to 3 new additional hours. Will be 2 at the beginning and 1 on Saturday later. We're looking at changing some hours around in the Rockford one to make it more more consistent of the hours, because right now they open up early one day, later they try to get those hours up there. The Howard Lake one, the rice companies, which was fixing their water problem, their soup on the job left. So they're kind of in a lurch right now, and plus the rain hasn't helped a bit. So their numbers are way down, so we're going to give it a year after they get all the repairs done and all the mold issues and the walls rebuilt and everything else, to see how the distribution's working out there. If they don't see a marked increase in people using that library, that is one that's could be on the chopping block of going away. And I tell people out there that, hey, use it or lose it.
Going away or going to the system that you have in Sortel, which is a
Locker system.
locker system.
Well,
It could go that, but it's,
and now, I mean, we can't have libraries, within 10 miles of each other essentially, and Cokato and Howard Lake would be, closer. So that might be one of the, but I mean, it'd be sad to lose it.
Thing is, then though, yeah, you go, like, if you're in Waverly, then you have to go to either Cokato or Delano.
or Buffalo.
Yeah.
But the thing is Nick, their administrator, Hagenmuller's been all over it trying to get this, and I've been just telling the in-laws and people out there, start using your library. We did that in Rockford Library, where we added Kindles and different things for reading programs, and their numbers started coming up good, because it's a heck of an asset to have in your community.
I wonder if it isn't hurting the Howard Lake Library too, with the brand-new school with a real nice library out
And
there.
I did mention that, Commissioner Burrell, that is one thing, Diamond, that did change, because like school used to be in Howard Lake, now it's 3 miles out of town. And that,
Well, mile and a half, whatever.
well, it changes the dynamics, because you can't just go from school to library. It's quite a leap there. So more to come on that, but looking forward to library, St. Michael's numbers are up, so it's looking forward to getting the 2 additional hours really quick, and then the 1 more if the numbers keep flying the way they are. Again, that to the compliment of St. Michael Library, they've been, since we changed those hours to be more consistent, their numbers have boosted dramatically. So the last thing is November 4th, a couple Mondays from now, Transportation Alliance will have their annual meeting down at Mankato, not Cokato.
Is it really? Cokato, where are they holding that?
Great, that's wonderful.
Yeah, Mankato. And so it'll
At
be
the Hilton in Cokato.
No,
Warner's Rest Home, isn't there, what that's called now? Okay, no, so
Hilton?
and that'll have, they say, quite the different transportation outlooks from MnDOT, Met Council, what's going on there, and some of that making it more connected with, we're having another conversation on those animated or automated vehicles and that.
Thomas?
It's a long ways off, but and one of the keynote speakers here is going to be the Great Lakes Hyperloop that they got from Wisconsin, Michigan. It's still, you got to see, some of these people do things you kind of question, does it really make sense? It's like that group is still back on for having train service from St. Paul to Duluth, which the North Star there went out of business because it didn't have any riders. And then they were right back with the Minneapolis to Chicago one, which is still going to take you 8 hours to get there. And you can fly there one way for $59. And you can take the megabus for $39. But anyway, so that's the annual meeting. And coming up, I won't be attending it, but Greater MSP. We'll have a couple of representatives from EDP going down for that. That's at the Ordway down there. And I think that's I want to say the 5th or 6th of November when that's going on.
You should go, try to get our $10,000 or $5,000 worth out of it.
$10,000. Well, they got gourmet food down there, Charlie, so, maybe that's worth it.
I'm saying you should take advantage of it.
I'll bet you they have gourmet
To get our money
desserts.
back.
They got gourmet everything. Yeah, let's figure
Gourmet
that stuff
desserts,
out.
Charlie, you should be going to that. But by that time, you won't be able to get in the fields anymore.
Yeah.
Snow will be so deep and
No, it's gonna
the
start
ground won't be
drying.
frozen.
It's gonna start drying out now.
Yeah, Charlie, you probably got to pay dearly to attend it, so it's, you probably wouldn't be able to consume enough to get your own admission in plus the 10,000 back.
I did want to, before we close out, Commissioner Potter, I had a solution, I passed it on to a couple of representatives with the gas tax, though. That's all I've heard my entire adult life is gas tax, whatever, it always comes up. And I said, just set it at the national average and we're done.
Yeah,
We
we
would
talked
raise
about
our
that.
gas tax, 4 cents, I think? About 4 cents.
It'd
And
be
then
just under 4.
the debate would be gone. And then I still think transportation is, everybody benefits from it, no matter where you live, your stuff got trucked there, your services get done, and it should come out of general revenue, whatever we need for roads.
Some states do that, we don't.
That was one thing that was talked about is
Yep.
a possibly addition to sales tax,
Yeah.
strictly dedicated to that purpose.
But if we just did the gas tax and this national average and left it.
So you want to tie it to the CPI?
No, just leave it at the national average, whatever the national.
Oh, the national average is, okay, so let other states determine what your gas tax is, okay.
But if you do it
But
indexing,
with
that's
50
government on
states, though-
cruise control, and that's not gonna.
That's why I say, you put it, connect things to the CPI, all you're doing is creating artificial inflation.
Oh, yeah. And
But
that's
with
not-
50 states, it stays pretty even, so.
All I know is that if I would've got my flying car like I was promised when I was a kid, we wouldn't have all these damn problems.
That was in Popular Mechanics.
And that's why his parents would let him watch the Jetsons.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Kelly, you got any last notes here?
Well, you guys did cover the bulk of things I wanted to talk about. Of course, we get towards the end of the year. That's always a busy time for administration, especially so this year with the negotiations that have to take place in ERP beginning soon. Should note from earlier in the meeting, we did receive confirmation that Buffalo did approve the Trailblazer documents last night. Been involved in a number of interviews lately. We had a very strong candidate pool for communication specialist. Had an entire day of interviews last Thursday, and this afternoon will be the second half of that. ERP administrator we discussed earlier. I also thought AMC District 5 was a good meeting. I did like their new format, and I'll relay on your comments to AMC, as I know they were looking for ways to get more value out of those meetings for the members, so I think that was good. It was good to see everybody, see some old friends. Former employer of mine is now Benton County Commissioner, so it was good to see him for the first time in several years, so that was fun. There's a email chain going back and forth regarding the Otsego project. Staff are working with that, as Otsego, I think, has now responded to what we'd sent out based on our discussion at the committee of the whole last week. So looking to set up another meeting to keep that moving forward. So just FYI. That's all I have.
All right. Well, if there's no other comments here this morning, we will adjourn today's county board meeting at 10:47.